stand off the side of it. There you go. Well, thanks for coming along today. I'm going to talk for about half an hour, I guess. And what I'd like to do really is have a conversation with you, if I can. Don't wait to the end. Don't save up questions and things like that. Just let them roll as we go. I'm going to talk about the first 5 ideas in thinking laterally about marketing. In a few weeks, we'll talk about the second 5 ideas. And then if I think laterally, I might think of another 5 ideas. And then you ask yourself, why do we do it in rounds of 5? I've got a clicker, so I have to stand here and do it. We all know who that is, of course. It's Edward de Bono, who developed the concept, or first documented it, the concept of lateral thinking, and coined the phrase lateral thinking. And that's his definition, but we don't need to worry too much about that. Lateral thinking is, of course, about thinking out of the box. It's about approaching things in a non-linear manner. You can all have a copy of this if you'd like afterwards. I'm happy to email it to you. And of course, he's the one that introduced us to the 6 hats, the 6 ways of looking at issues which try to force you not to think in a linear way about things. And what I'm going to talk about as we go through today is how to not think in a linear way about marketing, how to think a bit more laterally about marketing. We'll come back to those hats too. Just thought you'd like to know, if you haven't already heard, one of the best projects that Edward de Bono ever worked on. And our cameraman over here, Kenley Gordon, he actually helped Edward de Bono do a tour of Australia and gave me a signed copy of one of his books. There you go. But one of his famous tricks was he was engaged by the German government to find out how they could stop polluting the Rhine, because all the factories along the Rhine were pumping effluent, and it didn't matter how often they fined people, it was still cheaper just to pump the effluent out and pay the fine, and the river was getting dirtier and dirtier and dirtier, and they were looking at architects and engineers and planners and all kinds of people to find a solution. They said to de Bono, "You come up with a solution." He said, "Well, it's simple. You put the in pipe downstream from the out pipe." And that's what they did. The pipe that sucks the water into the factory has to be downstream from the pipe that pumps the water out. You're not going to have dirty water pumping in and the effluent dropped. Effluent level fell through the floor. So that is about lateral thinking. I was talking with Philip about LinkedIn. I started a conversation on LinkedIn not so long ago in the Institute of Company Directors group on the value of lateral thinking. And they all thought that lateral thinking had a lot of value so long as it wasn't ever on a board. They didn't see any value of lateral thinking directors. They think directors are much better if they focus on governance, which suggests to me why Australia struggles sometimes and why we need to bring investors in from other parts of the world. So let's think laterally about marketing. When you mention marketing to most people, they say advertising. When you walk through West Perth, where all the advertising agencies used to be, with their glittering signs, and there's still a few there struggling to survive, their signs all say advertising and marketing. They put the two in the same category. When I say to people I work in marketing, they say, "Which ads have you done? Which TV commercials were you responsible for?" Well, of course, advertising is only a very small part of marketing. We need to start looking at marketing entirely differently. We've all seen this brand. Has anybody damaged their health by eating a Krispy Kreme confectionery?
Oh, yeah.
Do you know it's one of the biggest confectionery brands in the world today? Do you know they don't have an advertising budget? They don't spend a cent on advertising anywhere in the world. Marketing is not advertising. Advertising is not marketing. In fact, marketing can occur without advertising. Krispy Kreme is an example. We all know that organisation. 5th biggest retailer in the world. The biggest fashion retailer brand in the world with no advertising budget. Absolutely no advertising budget. They do not advertise, I guess, except the staff from time to time, but they don't promote their wares in the traditional sense. So advertising is not marketing. Hands up if you've ever done that. Text while on the phone. While driving the car. Well, we've got 2 honest people in the room and a swag of dishonest people. Most people have text while driving or answered the phone while driving. That tells us 2 things. The first thing, that simply educating people doesn't affect them. Education is not enough. And again, it suggests that advertising isn't enough to cause the outcome you're looking for. If advertising worked, people wouldn't be using their mobile phones when they drive around in cars. And in fact, the research in Victoria shows quite clearly the only thing that will stop that is policing. And it's not the size of the penalty, it's the likelihood of being caught. If the penalty was $20,000, it would have a small effect on the frequency of the behaviour. If you couldn't be caught, there's a lack of likelihood of being caught. If there's a high likelihood of being caught, if there's a 1 in 2 chance of being caught, a $10 fine's enough. It's the likelihood of being caught, which explains why countries that have the death penalty also have the highest murder rates. And the states of the US have the death penalty, have the highest murder rates. Because there is no direct relationship between the penalty and committing a crime. The relationship is between the crime and the likelihood of being caught. You need to understand what is driving the human being, because marketing is all about human behaviour. It is all about managing behaviour. It's not about talking at people, it's about managing the behaviour of people. It's about getting them to behave in a way that's consistent with the outcomes you're looking for. Has anybody seen this guy? I'll go back to it. There he is. Before. No, that is. It's Laterally. He's a behavioural economist. He's a professor of psychology at Duke University. He wrote this book, Predictably Irrational. And in one of the chapters of the book, he talks about this experience. Mobile phone. Don't worry about the brand. Let's say that mobile phone's $800. Now I can sell it to you for $800 an hour, or you can walk across the road to the Duxton and get it for $720. Most of you will walk across the road to the Duxton, right? You'll save $80. The price of 2 theatre tickets, or 2 cinema tickets. You'll save $80 or 2 theatre tickets or whatever. Good, I would too. Why buy it from me for $800 if you can buy it across there for $720? What about in the case of the car? We've got an $8,000 car. You can buy it here from me now for $80,000, or you can buy it across the road for $79,820. Would you cross the road for $80?
No.
Probably not. You wouldn't. But it's the same $80.
Yeah.
$80 is $80. And the book is about the fact that human beings are not rational. And if we think we're dealing with a rational being when we're dealing with human beings, we're kidding ourselves. Human beings aren't rational. And then I hear professional service people, perhaps like Philip, nod their head and say, yeah, but is that true of professional services? Is it true in the business environment? Surely business people think rationally. Or try this. People who charge for their time, the better and better they get, the shorter and shorter it takes them to do the job. So the better you get, the less you get. Even if you increase the fee, you're doing the job faster. You're focusing on the input, not the output. And there's no discussion at all about the value delivering the customer. It's just about the time you put into the project. What is rational about that? That is entirely irrational to charge for time. You don't know how much time it took to make that dinner before you bought it. You bought the dinner because you saw value in it. They didn't charge you by the time. Why do professional people, service people, charge for time? It is entirely irrational. It's focusing on the input, not the output. The fact is, human beings are irrational. Does anybody know who that guy is? So his name's Daniel Kahneman. He's the first psychologist to win the Nobel Prize for economics. He developed the concept of behavioural economics, which he recounts in a book called Fast Thinking, Slow Thinking. One of the things this book taught us is that, as most of us probably already knew, we have 3 brains as human beings. We have the neocortex, the front part of the brain, the reason our head came forward. We have the limbic system, which is our emotional being. And we have the brain stem, which is generally called the reptilian brain. 80% of our decisions are made here. 80% of all the decisions we made, including your purchase decision. 80% of purchase decisions are made here. And yet, so much of our marketing is aimed here. But we're not applying that. Every single impulse purchase decision is made here. Just about all of your decisions are made there, and you focus most of our marketing up here and a little bit here. Marketing is about understanding what part of the brain you're targeting with each of those decisions. Marketing is about 4 things. It's about getting people to do something for the first time, the last time, more often, or less often. It's about behaviour. It's about getting you to buy Coca-Cola for the first time. It's about getting you to smoke for the last time. It's about getting you to go to Coles more often. And it's about getting you to drink alcohol less often. Marketing is about behaviour. It's about managing human behaviour. And if you're going to manage human behaviour, you need to understand human behaviour. I had a meeting one day at one of the universities here with a neuroscientist who was testing the brain, looking at what parts of the brain respond to what things and how advertising messages and communication messages affect the brain. Fascinating work, really fascinating work. And I said to him, who are your clients? And he said, oh, here they are, AT&T, Coca-Cola, all of these huge brands, Philip Morris, all around the world. And I said, but who are your clients in Western Australia? Bearing in mind this is a West Australian university. And he said, I don't have any clients in Western Australia. And I said, why not? And he says, because I won't work with Western Australian business people. And I said, why is that? He says, because they know it all. They know everything. There is this sense that I don't need to be told because I have something that you, the academic, doesn't have. I have common sense. I have intuition. I know what my market thinks. I know what my market's all about. I know what it's going to do. And I've been consulting in marketing now for 25 years, as I think Nikki said. And I've met thousands of CEOs who know how their market thinks and knows how their market responds. And yet companies like Apple, AT&T, Coke are spending fortunes on guys like this because they don't know how people think. And at least they realise they don't know how people think. Here's a test for you. How many choices is optimal? If you're going to buy something, how many options is optimal?
3.
3 to 5. 3 to 5 options. Good audience. Most people say as many as you can get. The fact of the matter is, anything over 5 options, your risk of purchase, your likelihood of purchase declines, and your level of satisfaction strips away really fast, and your likelihood of repeat purchase falls through the floor. Because you immediately find the smallest fault in the product, and you think, maybe I should have bought that other one. I probably should have bought that other one. I know I should have bought that other one. 3 is okay because you've got the cheaper, you've got the middle range, and you've got the high. That's okay. 5 is acceptable. But when you go into the supermarket and you see 17 different kinds of shampoo, it actually diminishes your likelihood of purchase, increases your level of stress, reduces your level of satisfaction, and almost eliminates the likelihood of repurchase. And in fact, very often brand loyalty in a supermarket is all about speed. That's the one I buy. And you say to people, what is the brand you bought? And they, oh, the green one. They don't even know what it is. And you know when you go into a Chinese restaurant, that drives you mad. You don't feel more satisfied because they've given you more choice. You feel less satisfied because they've given you more choice. And you love it when you go into a restaurant that's got 3 main courses, 3 entrees and 3 desserts. Because it's simple, it's straightforward. The brain doesn't like multiple choices. And yet, it is the most common thing. Supermarkets, clothing stores, there's not 4 or 5 different suits to choose from, there's 45 different suits to choose from. And they don't increase satisfaction, they reduce satisfaction. And people say to me often, how does Aldi get away with the fact that they have such a small range? That's exactly how Aldi get away with the fact that they've got such a small range. The small range actually works for them. It doesn't work against them. Here's an interesting experiment for you. This is one that was done in the US. So we offered, they offered students or people that one for 25 cents or that one for 1 cent. 80% of people said that looks better to me. I'll buy the 25 cent one. Fair enough. They saw 24 cents more value in that one than in that one. Fair enough. I don't, but they did. Okay, then they made this one free, and this one 24 cents, and this one was 80% of all consumers. Same 24 cent difference. Same 24 cents of value differential. And yet they bought the free one. Human beings are not rational. Not in the least bit rational. Free has this amazing effect on us, as does the number 9. I've heard people say many, many times, that must be bullshit, that thing about $9.99 working. $9.99 does work. And it works exceptionally well. And the rational mind, the neocortex, goes in and says, that's $10. The limbic system says, I'll buy it anyway. We are not rational beings. Does anybody know who that guy is? That's James Dyson.
Oh.
He developed the Dyson vacuum cleaner. He developed this. And he taught us that understanding the consumer is the key to making any great product. He sat down, he did what every bloke should do. He sat down and watched his wife vacuum. and he saw just how hard it was, how she had to bend down and reach up and all of these things, you know. Then he had to go himself, and he, I don't know why, but he did. And he was doing all of this stuff, and it was so difficult, so hard. And he said, there's got to be an easier way of doing this. So he developed a vacuum cleaner that sorted out those problems. Then he watched it again, and there were more problems. So he sorted those problems and kept on going until he developed a vacuum cleaner that he believes has eliminated all of the problems associated with vacuum. And that's how you develop a great product. A great product is all about understanding your consumer better than anybody understands the consumer. And number one, understanding where their pain points are and taking them away. It's not about telling them over and over and over and over again that you're good at what you do and having them not believe you. It's about understanding their pain points and taking those pain points away. And let me tell you, James Dyson was never a poor man, but he was never a rich man. He's a very rich man today. This vacuum cleaner made him very wealthy. And then there was the wheelbarrow and all the other things he developed, all of which were based on that principle. Find the pain point and eliminate that pain point. Understand your market. Understand them better than anybody, and your advertising budget, your marketing budget will fall through the floor because you'll understand what makes them tick, what makes them do what they do. Interesting example, this is the train from London to Paris, and they did a survey on the train and they found dissatisfaction levels were extremely high. People said the trip was just too long, right? So they spent $1 billion and they cut an hour or an hour and a half off the trip. And they said to people, what do you think now? The trip is just too long. And they said, we can't make the train go any faster. And some bright spark said, why don't we feed them, play a movie, and have people providing entertainment on the thing? They did it. They surveyed people and they said, the trip's just not long enough. It's about understanding where the pain point is. The consumer said the pain point was it took too long. But the fact of the matter was they were just bored for a long period of time. If you took that boredom away, then the problem went away. And planes are exactly the same. They play a movie. If it's a good movie, the plane trip goes quickly. If it's a bad movie, it doesn't. It's not about speeding up the train trip. It is about understanding the consumer that you're dealing with. I won't worry about those two slides just now. So it's about gathering the market data, doing the research, and getting the consumer insights that you need. Consumer insights is a very important thing, and I'll come back to those a bit in the rest of the speech. To understand your consumer better than anybody understands them. Whenever I say that, somebody in the audience always pops up and says, but Steve Jobs said don't do market research, it's a waste of money. Steve Jobs didn't say that. What Steve Jobs said was, don't ask your consumer what they want, because they don't know. And he's dead right, they don't know. But James Dyson didn't ask them what they want. He found out what their problem was. He asked them what their problem was, and that's where his intuition comes in. I see the problem, I have the data showing the problem. My intuition is, I know how to solve that problem. Apply the intuition not to what the consumer might want, but once you know what the problem is, apply the intuition to the solution, to finding the solution. But first, you've got to have that data. Does anybody know what that is? Tesla. You know, when he bought into that, when Elon Musk bought into that business, they were worth 2/3 of nothing. He paid 2/3 of nothing, and he's invested a lot in a sense. It's now the 13th biggest car manufacturer in the world, and whilst there's some controversial things happening with Tesla, it is an amazing product. It also has no advertising budget. No advertising budget. Zero, nothing, zip, not a cent. They do not advertise. And they're the 13th biggest car manufacturer in the world. What do they have in common with these guys? You know what that is? You'd know that store anywhere, wouldn't you? You'd know that store absolutely anywhere. And those guys, you'd know their product anywhere. The next slide is not going back. So, compare that to most of the other cars on the market today. Compare that product, what it offers, to what General Motors offers. It is something extraordinary, something special. You know, the latest version of that is a 6-cylinder. It's about $32,000, it will be, on the market in Australia. It has a reach of 350 kilometres without needing to be recharged. It can be recharged with a 3-pin plug, and it has the power of a big 6. But not a 6-cylinder, but it has the power of a big 6. Right? How are Commodores going to compete with that? How are Falcons going to compete with that? How are Japanese cars going to compete with that? The fact of the matter is they will find it very hard to compete with that. A lot cheaper to run. How does Telstra, with their ugly Telstra shops that try to copy this, ever going to compete? How does Optus ever compete with that? How does Microsoft, although they're getting better, compete with that? That is an extraordinary product. Tell me another furniture store in Australia that could compete with that. They can't. I hate IKEA. I hate their products, I hate their car park, and I don't eat meatballs. Yes.
John, can I ask you a question, just going back
Yeah.
to Tesla?
Yeah.
If you go back to the Roadster the first one that they released, which was sort of the supercar, electric supercar or whatever, it was $200 and something thousand, very expensive, and what I'd probably put in the premium category as far as cars are concerned. And the brand hasn't changed as such. It's still a Tesla, and they've come down through the market, and they're now producing this $30,000 car that you're talking about. I'm interested in your thoughts on. It's sort of like taking a Rolls Royce and saying we've now produced the ultra cheap $30,000 Rolls Royce. I'm just trying to work out how that actually works from a brand point of view.
I wouldn't
Because if I owned a Tesla, original Tesla, and you're now producing a $30,000 Tesla, I'd feel pretty jacked actually. Because I've spent $200 and something thousand. I haven't, but if I had, and you're now producing, do you know what I mean? I'm just
look. I think that's a valid point. I don't know that it's any different to Mercedes though. You know, you can buy a $600,000 Mercedes. You can buy one of those toy Mercedes. You know, and it was what car manufacturers are doing. I think the other part of that though, and I think people would be annoyed by it, is that what drives Elon Musk is not the elite end of the market. This is about the man. This is about the man. This is not about.
I mean, he actually tracks the product commercialisation path to a T.
Absolutely.
In the sort of the early adopters pay the premium price, and as it gets commoditised, they come down through the market. And so he followed that, but from a consumer point of view, I think it's been an interesting.
I think the other issue was he couldn't make a cheap car back then.
No, absolutely.
Now he can.
That was exactly right.
That's the point. And look, nobody puts a glove on IKEA. It's an amazing concept that's gone extremely well. What are they? The second biggest retailer in the world today. And what all of them teach us is this, that the product is everything. Tesla doesn't advertise it. It's the product that people buy. You see an ad, you go and buy something, you don't refer. You know, when's the last time you referred an average restaurant? You don't. Doesn't matter what got you in, you don't refer it. You know, you respond to an ad and you buy a product. and you don't like it. Do you refer it? No. Do you repeat purchase? No. It's the product that drives word of mouth. It's the product that drives repeat purchase. It's the product that drives cost-effective marketing. And those three brands emphasise that enormously, as does this one. People tell me, I ask taxi drivers all the time about this, you know, why do you think Uber's been so successful? Oh, because they don't have the regulation that the taxi industry has. Well, I reckon that's rubbish. They don't have the regulation, that's true, but I don't think that's the issue. It's a better product. It's just a better product. You get on the phone, it says they're going to be here in 3 minutes. When are they there? In 3 minutes. You know, they deal with you in a pleasant way. The transaction's all, you know, easily done. The car's clean. The people are nice. Try Swan Taxis. You ring, you get an aggressive person on the other end of the phone. They say those famous words, "Next available." And what does that mean? And then when they get there, the car's filthy. The guy's been eating garlic for a week, and it's a hideous experience. So it's the product that got them. You don't see Uber advertising. When's the last time you saw an Uber ad? I'm sure they do some, but they don't do much. Because they don't have to. Because their product is such that people want to buy it. And yet all we do when we talk about marketing is so we keep focusing on, let's get the promotion right, let's get the marketing right, let's get the advertising right. When it's the product that drives the story. Coca-Cola is an example of somebody who redefines the product. You know, when they do blind taste tests, Pepsi is preferred over Coke 90% of the time. But people don't buy a drink when they buy Coca-Cola, they buy a lifestyle. Coke is an image product. It's a product you buy because it's associated with things go better with Coca-Cola. Their product is not the drink. Their product is the feeling, is the excitement, is all the things associated with that drink. Pepsi think that soft drink is about drinks. Coca-Cola recognise that soft drink is about having fun, it's about excitement, it's about killing your teeth, it's about ruining your stomach. It's about all of those things. So, marketing is more about the product than ever. It's about leveraging that understanding of the market, we talked about before. It's about defining the brand for the market, and it's about constantly innovating and striving for excellence. It's about exploiting Australia's commitment to mediocrity. We have an absolute commitment to mediocrity in Australia, and if you exploit that by overcoming it and pushing your product above all things, then you'll win. Does anyone know who that is? Now surely you know who that is. That's Barry Marshall. Won the Nobel Prize for his work on the digestive system. You know, I like scientists, and we should read a lot more about science because they think objectively. They think on the basis of data. Every decision he made in finding his solution was based on data. And yet most of the decisions that people make in marketing are based on their gut. You know, I know you'll buy this because I bought it. But I know nothing about you. It's all gut and not data. We need to make more objective and less subjective decisions. We've got to understand that in marketing, like in most areas of business, it is trackable, it is measurable, and you need to do those things. Can anybody tell me who that is?
Elon Musk.
That's Elon Musk. And Elon Musk, when he was asked what made Tesla so great, he said, going back to first principles. Always going back to first principles. Don't accept assumptions. Don't accept what anybody tells you. Go back to the physics, go back to the chemistry, and question everything. Question everything. And one of the things, these examples of irrational thinking that I'm showing you through here, is examples of where people aren't questioning things enough. We don't question things, we accept facts. We accept that if you lower the price, you'll increase demand. When in many cases, that's the opposite of what happens. And there's plenty of experiments showing how that works. We assume that when it comes to price, consumers make rational decisions. Well then why are they going for the chocolate when it's free but not when it's 1 cent? They don't make rational decisions. We need to question absolutely everything. And the third one, you all know that, Steve Jobs, he taught us the power of lateral thinking in business, the power of thinking a bit differently about things. So we all need to think like a scientist. We need to think like Jobs did when he did iTunes. Do you know, governments were running ads all over the world. We've seen them on our videos when we had video things we used to put in, video cassettes. They used to say, copying this video is an offence, you could go to jail, blah, 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 blah. And that didn't work? That'd be a surprise to you, wouldn't it? It absolutely didn't work. And when you went around the room and said to people, how many of you have pirated music? 9 out of 10 people, who's pirated a movie? 9 out of 10 people, whatever. All of that stuff. All this promotion telling us it's bad, you shouldn't do it. Steve Jobs said, make it so cheap they don't need to do it. As simple as that. Make it so cheap they don't need to do it. In other words, put a value on their morality. I'm prepared to be moral to this dollar amount. After that, I'll break the rules. That's lateral thinking. Putting $1, charging somebody for something to stop them stealing it. That's kind of contra-thinking. But it's good thinking and it worked. Pirating of music still exists, of course, but it's gone down at a staggering rate. Because it's cheap enough now, why would I steal it? I can feel good about myself as well as listening to the music. That's lateral thinking. An interesting study done in the United States with tax returns, right? So we get 100 people to do a tax return. They sign at the end when they've done the tax return. They go away. We do an assessment of the tax return and we find out that about 90% of them lied in one way or the other. That'd be a surprise, wouldn't it? You get them to sign the tax return before they fill it in, and 9% lie. You sign the tax return before you fill it in, and it reduces lying behaviour. People start to tell the truth because they feel a commitment to the process. In the United States, when they get people to vote now, because the biggest issue in the United States is getting people out to vote, not telling them who to vote for, to getting them to actually vote, they get you to sign a pledge that you will go out and vote. And it's increased by 70%, the number of people that actually do say, yes, I'll vote, and actually vote. You sign something that's not legal, that means nothing, but simply by signing it, you feel like, well, I've made a commitment. I need to go and do this stuff now. The power of commitment. Not intuitive, is it? If somebody said to you, should I sign the tax return at the beginning or at the end, would it make any difference? You'd say no. But it makes a huge difference. You say, get somebody to sign a blank piece of paper at their door on committing to vote, you'd say, I can't imagine that have any effect. Trust me, look at the research. It has a massive effect on behaviour. Human beings, the human mind is a tricky thing and it thinks in different sorts of ways, and we just assume that all of this common sense is real, then we're kidding ourselves. Here's another good one. In bathrooms in hotels in the United States, they tried an experiment where they put a sign on the counter there. You've all seen them. They said, please recycle your towels, it's good for the environment, blah, 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 blah. And they gave you a good reason why you should do it, nicely presented sign. And about 30% of people recycled their towels, and they thought that was pretty good. They were pretty pleased with that. And some of the behavioural economists came along and said, why don't you put a sign there that says 80% of people staying at this hotel recycle their towels? And what happened? 60% of people recycled their towels. So it went from 30 to 60% by telling them that other people are doing it. Because we don't want to be less than other people. We want to be better than other people. Again, not really intuitive, but these are the kinds of things you can do to manage people's behaviour. And if you don't understand how they're thinking, you can't do those things. And Airbnb, I think, was an amazing example of lateral thinking. It was about saying, what is the... Well, firstly, is there an alternative to hotels? Yes. Will people stay in these houses? Yes, they will. But what's the problem? What's the one issue? And the issue was trust. So everything they did was about building trust. Trust in the person staying in the home and trust in the person owning the home. They now have more employees than Hilton. So they have more. They rent more rooms each night than Hilton, which has 14,000 employees, and Airbnb have a couple of thousand employees there. They're now the biggest accommodation provider in the world. And people say to me, that's a great example of using of innovative technology. That technology has been available for years. There's nothing innovative about the technology. Absolutely nothing. The technology is not new at all. What's new is the way they viewed accommodation and how they viewed the issues that people were having with accommodation. They took a different look. They looked laterally at the problem and came up with a solution. So, great marketing, in my view, is about making sure you're thinking objectively about things. Look at the numbers. Don't look at your gut, because your gut is wrong more often than it's right. Think critically. Don't accept anything. Question everything and look for the data. And on most of these things, there is data. If you look at consumer insights, which I mentioned before, on the internet now, there are truckloads of studies that have that. And then think laterally. There is not one way of solving any problem. There are multiple ways. And one of the things that used to infuriate me when I was in the advertising business, people would say, this is the only way you can run this campaign. There is no one way of doing anything. And then the fifth point. Does anybody know who that is? Jim Collins. He wrote the book Good to Great. If there's ever a book you should read, that's a book you should read. And he said the most important thing after finding the right CEO for your business is putting the right people on the bus. Not the best people, the right people. I was with somebody the other day and they said, we're shortlisted for this position. The person we thought was ideal has withdrawn, so we're going for number 2. Never go for number 2. You want the right person for the job. And Collins' research said time and time again, found time and time again, that unless you got the right person, it was more expensive to employ the wrong person than to employ nobody. You're better off leaving it vacant. And of course, we all know the expression, you're the smartest person in the room and you're probably in the wrong room. I don't think that's true. But if you're going to employ somebody to do something you're not doing, they should be smarter than you at that. They should be better at that than you are, and you should let them do it. And one of the things I find is too often CEOs in Australia think, we know all there is to know about marketing. I'll give the marketing manager the brief, tell him what to do, and he'll go away and do it, or she'll go away and do it. Instead of saying, oh, this is the outcome, go away and find the best way to deliver that outcome. So what is the right person? It's certainly not somebody who understands news media anymore. This is dying. It's not somebody with technical expertise. You just buy those in. They're cheap enough. People think it's all about digital technology, whatever. You buy it in. What it's about is understanding how humans behave. It's about understanding the human brain. It's about understanding how you cause people to behave the way you want them to behave. It's about avoiding people like that. I used to be a person like that. Which one do you think I was, Kenley?
One with the booze in his hand. That's
one with the booze in his hand. Because they're going to find an advertising solution every problem you've got. They're going to find a way to spend more of your money. They're going to find a way to say to you, you need more media, you need bigger ads, you need better ads, you need more placement, you need more this, you need more that. When it's not a communication issue, it's so much more than that. You need people, you need to get the right people on the bus. You need people that don't think in a linear way. You need people that can think in a lateral way. They can take those suggestions of going from the white hat through to the blue hat. It's well worth reading that stuff. It's a bit of fun. And you need people to read people like Dan Ariely. Here's an experiment to finish with. Dan sold this book in an experiment for 3 different price points. Right? Which price point do you think worked the best? And which price point do you think worked the worst?
Free best. Free plus 20 shipping.
$3 plus $20 shipping best. 10 and 10 worst.
10 and 10 was the worst. Because people thought they were not getting anything for nothing. Isn't that bizarre? And free shipping worked because people saw value in the book. They don't see value in getting the book. Right? This is what marketing is about. It's about understanding how the consumer thinks. It's about understanding how do I price that. It's not about telling somebody the book exists. It's about finding the best way to extract that $20 from them. The first one, the other two were pretty close together as it happens. But people love getting something for nothing, even though they're not getting something for nothing. So understand the task at hand, understand the skills required, and develop that marketing culture. So in summary, these are the 5 things. Marketing is not about anything other than behaviour. It's about making people behave the way you want them to behave. You can't make people behave a particular way unless you understand your market. Their success will always stem from your product, not from the way you communicate. You need to think like a scientist. Think objectively, critically, and laterally. And get the right people on the bus. If you get the old world people on the bus, you'll get more old world thinking. Next time we're going to cover those things. I'll move on. Learn from the greats. Thanks.